God-level duplication system. Chapter 81. Enraged. After a while, the field calmed down. However, Lin Xuan's situation had changed drastically. He was no longer respected by everyone but blamed by everyone. Among the crowd, Chen Yuzi shook his head and sighed. Lin Xuan was still too young and impulsive. He actually dared to say that he would challenge the elites of the inner sect. The elites of the inner sect were, at least, condensation spin stage warriors. However, not everyone who had reached the condensation spin stage could become an elite of the inner sect. Every single elite of the inner sect was one of the best among the disciples of the inner sect. After breaking through to the condensation spin stage, they still needed to test their combat strength and talent. Among the disciples of the inner sect, the status of an elite disciple was extremely high. There had never been a case where an ordinary disciple of the inner sect challenged an elite disciple of the inner sect. Even the 20 over true disciples were the same. Therefore, Lin Xuan's words had aroused the public's anger. Chen Yuzi could only sigh and watch from afar, praying that none of the inner sect's elites would be provoked. He had no other choice. He was just an ordinary disciple of the inner sect and a new disciple who had just entered the inner sect a few days ago. His status and strength were ordinary in the inner sect. Next to the arena, the deacon was also stunned. The smile on his face froze. After he recovered from his shock, he also turned grave. He looked at Lin Xuan and said, "Lin Xuan, this kind of thing has never happened before. Are you sure it's really like this?" "I'm sure." Lin Xuan smiled faintly and replied. The change in attitude among the disciples had indeed exceeded his expectations. The status of the elite disciples of the inner sect was probably higher than he had imagined. But so, what? He didn't care at all. He had confidence in his own strength. Furthermore, if he could defeat an elite of the inner sect, he would be able to obtain even more energy points. Alright. The deacon saw Lin Xuan's insistence, but he didn't say anything else. He just registered his name. Although he felt that this rule was somewhat absurd, he could not help but feel some anticipation. Lin Xuan was only a new disciple. If he could defeat an elite disciple of the inner sect, what kind of exciting scene would that be? Although it had never happened before, it wasn't entirely impossible for Lin Xuan to defeat Yaya. Because he knew that after Lin Xuan came to the sect, he had already set several records. It wasn't impossible for Lin Xuan to set another record. When the disciples of the inner sect saw this, their attitude became even more disdainful. On the arena, Lin Xuan didn't mind. He swept his gaze across the entire arena and said in a clear voice, "You don't need to talk nonsense. Many of you don't like me, right? Then let's fight. Don't tell me that you old disciples who have been in inner sect for a few years are afraid of a new disciple who hasn't even reached the beginner level for 40 days. If that's the case, you can pack up and go home. If you don't even have the courage to fight, why do you cultivate it?" Lin Xuan shouted out the last sentence. That's right, Lin Xuan was purposely provoking these disciples of the inner sect. He wanted these disciples of the inner sect to rush out and fight him so that he could earn spirit stones and contribution points. In any case, with the talent he had shown, he should have already entered the eyes of the sect seniors. As long as he didn't do anything like betray the sect seniors would protect him.
There was no harm in doing all this. He could also conveniently obtain some more energy points. Sure enough, as soon as Lin Xuan finished speaking, the scene instantly erupted into an uproar. What the fuck? He's so arrogant. Does he think he's a true disciple? He's just a new disciple, and he dares to look down on us. If we don't teach him a lesson, I won't go back today. He's too detestable. So, what if he's talented? He's so arrogant, he won't achieve anything. Yeah, he doesn't have a humble heart at all. All the disciples' faces turned red. They shouted out angrily, their eyes were wide open, as they glared at Lin Xuan. Among the crowd, Chen Yuzi also lowered his head carefully, afraid that others would notice him. He was also a new disciple like Lin Xuan, and he was afraid that he would be affected by it. He had guessed Lin Xuan's intention, but he didn't understand why Lin Xuan would use such a violent method. His actions had offended all the disciples of the inner sect. Was he not afraid of getting revenge? Was he really that confident in his strength? Or was his strength strong enough to resist everything? After that, Chen Yuzi shook his head again. He denied this guess. Lin Xuan was a genius, and his talent was indeed very high. However, the time he spent cultivating was still too short. It was impossible for him to deal with so many disciples of the inner sect. Beside the arena, the deacon who was sitting behind the table revealed a bitter smile when he saw this. As a deacon, he was used to seeing the changes in the world. Thus, he saw through Lin Xuan's intentions with a glance. But Lin Xuan's way of doing things was too direct, wasn't it? Next, he would probably be attacked by the revenge of many inner sect disciples. In fact, he might even attract the revenge of the inner sect's elites. He couldn't help but worry about Lin Xuan's fate. Of course, this was just a joke. Even if the elites of the inner sect came, they would at most severely injure Lin Xuan severely. If they dared to harm Lin Xuan's life, or if they harmed his foundation of potential, he would certainly save him. Furthermore, with the talent that Lin Xuan had displayed, he was ranked at the top of the entire sect. He had already entered the sect. Senior's line of sight, a long time ago. Perhaps some of the higher-ups were secretly paying attention to him. A top genius like Lin Xuan, once his strength grew, would definitely be able to strengthen a large sect. Therefore, he couldn't let Lin Xuan be in danger. He didn't even need to make a move. If Lin Xuan was really in danger, there would be a spirit opening stage or even higher-level higher-ups who would save him. After all, in the eyes of the higher-ups, an elite from the inner sect couldn't be compared to Lin Xuan. Although Lin Xuan was only in the Qi transformation stage, his cultivation base wasn't high. However, judging from his talent, it wouldn't be difficult for him to become a true disciple in the future. Most of the elites of the inner sect couldn't even step into the strongest realm, let alone become true disciples. It was very easy to determine who was more important between them. At this moment, he was only silently muttering to himself. On the arena, Lin Xuan looked at the energy points in the attribute panel in front of him that were increasing at an even faster speed, and a faint smile appeared in his eyes. This time, it was really not bad. After a while, he should be able to obtain even more energy points. Moreover, there would be many people who would take the initiative to give him contribution points and a spirit stone. As Lin Xuan expected, not long after that, a 7th level Qi transformation stage disciple furiously landed on the arena. I heard that your talent is not bad. But you are only a new disciple. New disciples must keep a low profile. If you are so arrogant, you will not have a good end. Today, let me teach you. As soon as this disciple of the inner sect stepped onto the arena, he started to lecture Lin Xuan non-stop. Lin Xuan was speechless as well. He looked at the judge from the side. The bet begins. When the judge saw this, he hurriedly announced, "You talk too much nonsense. Go down." After that, Lin Xuan made his move. He walked over and threw a punch. However, the 7th level Qi transformation stage disciple from the inner sect was unable to withstand the seemingly simple attack. He was sent flying and fell off the arena.